Good evening, Anthony, and good evening, Graham, and welcome on this Monday evening to the latest edition of
Hello, Charles.
Two Big Egos in a Small Car. And we had a very enjoyable evening last night in the company of David Gedge, Matt Aston, director and writer of Reception the Musical, and Amanda Cook as host of an event where David talked about his 40-year career with a wedding present and previewed the upcoming musical reception, and then finished the show with 20 minutes sort of impromptu solo playing on a guitar. I thought it
Yeah,
worked
it was
really well
great.
as
It
an
was it
evening.
was very intimate occasion, and the older David Gedge gets, the funnier he gets.
Yeah, it
He's
was.
very droll.
It is very. It's rock and roll, isn't he? That's
Yeah,
exactly what
rock,
it is.
rock and roll.
And
His
yeah,
his
because
singing voice has also got better because in
yeah.
the 80s when I first saw him a wedding present and jumped up and down at the front with all the other lunatics, he couldn't actually say he had a great voice, but he's got a purr to it now. He
Mm,
wraps his vocal cords around the words.
mm, mm. So yeah, this was in Rise, which is when suddenly at night, Bluebird Bakery mysteriously turns into Rise.
Mm.
So obviously a title taken from the act of baking, which is
Yes, the
obviously
dough rising, isn't it?
the dough rising. And
Mm.
so this is a place that's been making its mark in New York and gradually becoming a little bit of a gem in the city, and well worth the walk if you're in the city centre, walking out to Acomb. It's just a little gem that's really progressing. It's already a delightful cafe, but this element of it, where there are comedy nights and there are children's performances, and there are small scale concerts. It's really gaining momentum. And also, I
It
should mention,
reminded me a lot of Hyde Park Book Club in Leeds, except
yeah,
not quite as big.
you can see the parallels with that. The other thing they
And
do,
I like the Hyde Park Book Club in Leeds, so I
yeah,
like Bluebird Bakery. I thought it was
yeah,
great.
there's good coffee there, of course, as well. So Frida Nipples also does I think it's pretty much monthly. She does her Baps and Baguettes, a wonderful title for her evening of exotic performance in with acts that you'd cabaret style,
It sounds
and
like a very Yorkshire version of Ooh, Ah, Missus.
I don't think Frida would like it necessarily called "Ooh, Our Misses" because she takes the acts that they perform there, the skill that goes with burlesque.
But we're going to go to the launch of the musical, the Wedding Present musical, which is it'll be
We
good
are.
next month.
We are.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's going to be August the 26th is press night for that, and we'll certainly be covering that. And really looking
I
forward.
don't like musicals in general, although there are some exceptions to the rule. But I do like Wedding Present songs, so perhaps it'll be a good musical.
Absolutely. It isn't a story of the wedding present. It's songs that filter into it, but it's a story partly inspired by the fact that the band is called the Wedding Presents, and so it's a series of events like a graduation ceremony, gathering, a funeral, a wedding, and a wedding reception. It's that kind of structure to it. So, but
Mm.
we'll reflect on it, as I say, in late August when we get the chance to go to it. Now, Graham, you've been to one of the.
I've got interruption,
Yeah,
Charles.
go on.
I suddenly thought of a line. It popped in my head the other day, and this is the line.
Hmm.
I Because I've been thinking about journalism, having done it a long time and having seen it change particularly recently. So it's weighing on my mind. So I thought of the line, "A journalist without a heart is an assassin." I know it sounds a bit like a Raymond Chandler line from The Big Sleep, or
A
even like
journalist
Marlon
without a heart
Brando
is an
mumbling
assassin.
towards the end of Apocalypse Now. A journalist without a heart is an assassin.
Do you want to, without naming names, as to who that might apply to?
Well,
Um,
I would say most journalists.
I think you could make
Not
a
all.
case for news reporting on newspapers in the past that would apply to, where the truth
Mm.
didn't seem to even matter to certain tabloids at all. I think you could cater,
Well, it didn't seem to
cater
matter to some
that.
former broadsheets now either. It's the whole state of journalism, I think, is deteriorated badly in the last 10 years in Britain.
um, I,
Well, it's a
I
big
think,
subject. Let's not go too far into this, Charles. It's a gigantic topic.
well, when my voice is slightly better than it is tonight, I might wish to reflect on that as a whole episode because
Mm.
I would still make a counter argument, not against the principle that there's too many assassins out there in journalism, but I still believe that in certain areas of journalism, you still get very high quality reporting, detail, imaginative feature writing, color pieces. I think all that still happens. It's just not as prevalent as it used to be, and newspapers don't perhaps hold that in great store in the way they did in the past. I still think there's a role for investigative journalism, which again I don't consider to be assassin journalism, but is actually usually with the merit and purpose of trying to change the world for the better. And that is still at the heart of some journalism. But a lot of journalism, I realize that's changed from. But we'll come back to that. Let's talk about a different form of writing, if we may, actually, Graham, which is the writing of crime pieces, crime novels, thrillers. And there's an event in Harrogate every year, the Theakston's Old Peculiar, that's Old Peculiar with an ER, Crime Writing Festival in Harrogate. A very concentrated and intense festival, but you can't, I would say, find a higher quality festival of its type in the country. Does exactly what it says on the tin, drawing big names to the festival, only for a short period, lots of discussion, big names that come, and it's a lovely place to do it in Harrogate. So, how was it this year as an experience for you?
Well, it's the same every year, but every year it gets tweaked just a little bit and gets even
Mm,
better. I mean, I chatted briefly to Mick Herron, the author of the Slow Horses book series. He's done
yeah.
9 now, and that led to the TV series, with Gary Oldman and Jack
Mm,
Lowden and Kristen Scott Thomas.
mm,
And I talked to him, and he said that the Crime Writing Festival at Harrogate isn't really a crime writers festival; it's a crime readers festival. He said because at lots of
yeah.
other events he goes to, the stars, i.e., the authors, the best-selling authors, they all hang around in the green room talking to each other. But at
Mm,
Harrogate, they're hardly ever in the green room. They're always out chatting to people they've never met before
yeah.
or other people in publishing. It's a very sociable, relaxed, non-elitist mingling that goes on at the Old Swan
Mm,
Hotel in
mm.
Harrogate. So it was even better than ever. It was just fantastic, and you learn a lot by going. That the authors' talks are particularly good talks. They're not just trying to sell the book. They're pretty honest most of the time.
Are the
And
authors interviewed, or do they just speak off the cuff, as it were?
they're always interviewed. It's always like a serious thing where you have a proper interview. Sometimes it's a BBC presenter like Paddy O'Connell from
Yes.
Broadcasting House and Radio
Yeah.
4. Other times it's quite often another crime writer because who's better to interview a crime writer than another
Yeah.
crime writer?
Yeah.
So it's all very collegiate and informal and relaxed, but well organized. It's
Sometimes it's
it's
even
within
been
boundaries.
Nicola Sturgeon, isn't it, in doing interviews?
Yeah, yeah. People float up who are not even on the bill, just
Mhm.
celebrities or crime writers or
Yeah.
even non-crime writers, just authors, because they like to hang around. It's a really nice vibe. So it is the place to be, and I really enjoyed it. And
I guess
I managed
the
to
most
ask Irvin Welsh of Trainspotting
well, I was going
fame
to
a
say that
question.
the most topical one to be there is that Irvin Welch is just bringing out his new book, which again it's the train spotting characters this
Hmm.
time. But tell me, what's at the heart of that book, and what did he reveal about why he's written
Well, he
this latest
read
book?
like the opening 3 or 4 pages, which were very good. It's basically a prequel. It's about Sick Boy and Begbie and the whole gang as
Mm,
teenagers in
mm,
Leith when they don't know anything. They don't even know enough to do what they do later on train spotting. So it's about them growing up under the influence of an older character who's a bit of a wayward free spirit.
yeah.
He's a merchant seaman who goes around the world and he has a woman in every port or a family in every port, as everyone Welsh said. So it sounds an interesting book. It sounds worth reading, but I've read the reviews and it's 500 pages long. And
Mm.
I think most reviews said that it could do like a little bit of editing.
That's the job of an editor. Of course,
Yeah, but when it's Irvin Welsh, I would
it's tricky
imagine
to
that
tell him,
he
isn't it?
packs so much clout. I can't imagine an editor telling Irvin Welsh to chop 100 pages. Can you?
Not unless he wants Begbie setting on him. No.
Well, exactly, yeah. So he was very entertaining and very thoughtful, and he bizarrely reminded me of William Burroughs, not because he talks or looks like William Burroughs, not because his writing's the same as that great Greek writer William Burroughs,
Mm,
more because everything he says has a point,
mm,
everything he says relates to general society, and there's always a political angle as well, just like Burroughs. And also on top of that, although he's very good at dialogue and characters, he seems to have, just like Burroughs, an almost forensic understanding of how society and people work. He's very dispassionate. He's above, although his style of writing is very lively and very Scottish. It's almost like he's floating above the whole thing, just like Burroughs floated above the stories of his books.
I'm going to ask a dim question. He doesn't strike me as a crime writer.
Well, if you read some of his crime writing books that have ended up being adapted for TV with Dougray Scott called
Hmm.
Crime, if you read those, he tones down his style a bit, and they're reasonably close to traditional crime writing.
Yes.
And those do stand up as crime novels, although
Okay.
they're still Irving Welsh books. You can tell it's
Hmm.
Irving Welsh. But you're right, your train spotting books aren't crime at
But
all
that's
and aren't written like
yeah.
crime novels.
Maybe it's because some of his other work actually is in that oeuvre. So you know, and frankly, who's going to say no to having Irving Welsh come to the festival anyway? It would have been a crime not to have
Yeah,
him
well,
if the
it's quite an
opportunity was
open
there.
festival. It's not
Mm.
like it's not driven by boundaries. It's although it's tightly organized, it's also quite loose. So I raised my hand and waited to get the mic to ask Irving Welsh a question.
I can't wait to hear what you asked him.
Well, I didn't want to ask a really serious question. So instead, I said like I'm Graham Chalmers, advertiser. I'm originally from Grangemouth. Most of my family worked in the BP before it was INEOS. I went to school with the Cocteau twins, who, as far as I'm concerned, are authentically more Scottish than Shortbread or Toss in the Caber. But I've got one of the world's greatest singles here from 1996,
Yeah,
and it is Irvin. Primal Scream, Irvin Welsh, and the On You Sound present The Big Man and the Scream Team Meet the Barmy Army Uptown. And I said,
yeah,
the interesting thing about this single, Irvin, is that it has a label stuck to it which
yeah.
says, Warning, this record is offensive. I said, it's quite interesting that you've actually got a review on the record. This It's not like this warning may be offensive. It's like this warning. This record is
It's
offensive.
offensive. Yeah.
And so he laughed and smiled. I said, was that your idea, Irvin? And he said, no, but it wasn't my idea. It was
Mm.
the record company because there's a bit of like what can I say, Scottish vernacular talking about football on it. So
Yeah.
it got a few laughs.
I think you
And
mentioned
somebody
also
next to me didn't know said it was a good question.
maybe one again. It's a festival that also sort of produces unexpected guests, of which, if my recollection is right, that Saskia Reeves from Slow Horses,
Yeah, well,
she made an
the,
appearance as well, and that's a lovely thing to happen when you get the unexpected
well,
guests.
it was a real wow moment because you had like Mick Hearn there talking about Clowntown, the ninth
Mm.
Slow Horses book, Slough House it's
Slough
based
House,
in,
yeah.
and
Mm.
you got the Will Smith who writes the TV series, who used to be a stand-up comic. You definitely recognize him, and
Yeah.
he was actually a character and a writer on The Thick of It with Amanda Nucci. So you got those two talking, which is already brilliant. They're both good at talking. You're learning quite a bit. It's interesting. Then on comes a special guest on stage, dressed from head to toe in flowing pink, and it's Saskia Reeves.
Mm.
And by Harrogate standards, the crowd went wild, and
It's
she was
not a
super
term you
interesting.
associate with Harrogate. Not even down watching the football team. No crowd goes wild in Harrogate.
No, and I tend to stand out at Harrogate Town matches for getting passionate.
So, Graham, this yet again, happy to report a really good festival. It's one of the key events of the year in Harrogate, the Crime Writing Festival, and of course, even if my memory serves me, I think they usually do the press launch in London rather than Harrogate, which always seems a bit strange. But
Yeah,
there's
that I went to in April at Hashut House on Blackfriars. I
mm,
think it's on the Embankment. But yeah, the good thing about the festival from Harrogate point of view is that I reckon two-thirds of the audience are not from Harrogate, and they stay in all the main hotels in Harrogate. And
yeah,
it's great for the business of hotels. It's
yeah.
great for restaurants, great for bars and cafes. It's like Harrogate briefly becomes the centre of something nationally, internationally important.
The one thing that surprises me is that if you look at an event like the Aesthetica Short Film Festival in York, which is because that's short films, but it actually becomes an ever longer festival, growing from 3 days to 5 days to whatever. This stays a pretty intense and short event. Do we know the reason why that is?
Well, if it's working, I mean, there are costs involved with running it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's sponsored by Theakston's and various other uh, businesses and organizations. Otherwise, it couldn't happen.
yeah.
Well, the longer you put it on, the more the costs
More the
rise,
more the
and
costs,
then
right?
the
Yes.
more guest writers you have to find.
Mm,
And why tamper with something that is tightly run by Harrogate National Festivals and is successful? Why mess around with it? It's just a long weekend is all it is. You don't really want a whole week.
no.
A long weekend works perfectly.
Okay, that's a good reason. Just briefly, while we're on books, just to update about toppings in York, council officers had recommended a refusal of planning permission for um, the conversion of a building that was empty, former home to, I think, visit York and Make It York. And the good news is that the councillors decided to ignore the advice or to go against the advice of the council officers, including one councillor stating it would have been the most bonkers decision in the history of bonkers decision making in York. And another councillor pointing out that if you just leave it empty, what in the earth is the point of doing that? So the good news is the planning committee has given the thumbs up to toppings going ahead in York. The council officer's concern was over a mezzanine level being put in and would that alter the character of the place. But I went to Bath during last week, and I went in to see toppings. They've moved within Bath to bigger premises from comparatively small premises. And it's a wonderful pleasure to be in a bookshop like that. And York's going to be even bigger scale than the one in that's now in Bath, including I think it will have a cafe in York. I think that's right. Um, and it just struck me that what a missed opportunity it would have been to turn down something like that. It would be so
For
short-sighted.
a matter of a
Matter
mezzanine,
of a
that would have been
mezzanine level. I
ridiculous.
mean, there are levels and
Mm.
levels in life, but that really isn't the level at which you say no to something happening. They they
It's it,
they they have
it's like
done. Go on, Graham.
it's the
Go
least
on.
limited decision you could ever make. It's like no attention to the arts whatsoever. Just let's worry about one floor of a building.
One floor of a building, and it seemed to me that we're always pushing to try to get high quality into York. I don't think our shopping profile is ever as strong as it should be in the city. You go to a place like Bath, and it's just in a different league, and you could say, well, that's Southern wealth and whatever, but actually, Spa Town in the south versus with Roman connections. So you've got there's the link with York. It's obviously Spa Town, Harrogate, but York's got wonderful industrial history as well to draw. And there's no that you can make parallels. York doesn't, I think, punch its weight on the shopping front, and something like turning down a shop like Toppings would have just been so short sighted. So I'm very glad that it's not. That's not happened, and the council officers have had to beat a retreat on that one.
Yeah, good sense has emerged in York.
Yeah, and while on the topic of books and reading, you've been reading Katja Hoyer's Beyond the Wall, East Germany, 1949-1990. This is a book released by Penguin, and we always have that wonderful memory of going to Berlin as the just literally days after the wall had come down. So, I mean, I'm not saying that sort of sparked your interest in there, but I think it obviously piqued your interest in it. And here's a book talking about Beyond the Wall, East Germany, 1949 1940 to 1990. What did you learn from it, Graham, that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, Katja tries to reinterpret East German history to make it seem that the life in the East German state under communist rule was not half as bad as being portrayed by the whole of the West.
Mm,
And she makes a fairly successful case that that's true because she's from East German background anyway. So
mm,
she does know what she's talking about. But the thing about East Germany is it looked down on the West as being, backward and repressive and
mm,
not
mm,
democratic at all. So this is what she says the East German government thought the West at the time in the 1940s and 50s. The communist logic sees a multi-party system as one that serves to perpetuate the reign of those in power as it promotes factionalism amongst the population. When you vote for a political party rather than individual, the odds are stacked in favour of those with the biggest funding and the best campaigning infrastructure. Established parties dominate thought and can exclude individuals who lack the power, connections, or money to form their own party and succeed with it. So that seems to me to make perfect sense as to how the West operates now. It's
yeah,
very hard to get liberal, progressive ideas
yeah.
into the mainstream of politics now. So that sort of makes some sense until you actually read what life was like in East Germany, where there were no elections,
No.
where it was all top down. And she does point out that the East German state actually bust a gut trying to bring consumer goods to the East Germans. They weren't
Mm,
trying to like make East Germany poor. They actually went to a lot of effort, spent a lot of money bringing, giving the population jeans and cars
Yeah.
and fridges and good coffee. The East German communist government spent an eternity trying to get good coffee into East Germany and it formed lots of like trading relationships with countries just to get good coffee.
Mm,
And it was so determined to help the population, the East German government, even though it was completely autocratic and undemocratic. It actually started to form, even before the Berlin Wall fell, it started to fall in 1989. It
mm,
already formed trading relationships with West Germany and lots of Western countries, which was in flagrant violation of what the Soviet Union really wanted. So, to a degree, she's right that East Germany wasn't quite as bad as it was made out, but you can't really get round the Stasi and how it behaved, which was appalling. You can't get round the lack of democracy or freedom.
mm.
So I think the book pushes it all a bit too far.
Celestine and I went to a very good exhibition about East Berlin on our not that long ago trip to Berlin, which I think tilts the image more to what we in the West think of it and how it
Mm.
was. But it does show, the lifestyles that and the houses that they were living in, the clothing that they had, all that was presented well. Obviously, the Stasi comes into that exhibition as well. Um, I felt it was honest. I didn't think it was, I think it would have been interesting to have gone into an exhibition in East Berlin in 1988 about East Berlin, how that would have presented East Berlin. That would have been fascinating to know.
Mm.
This obviously is an exhibition presented afterwards, looking backwards. But it was fascinating. I felt I had an insight into the East Germany that I had not had before, and I did think it was well worth on anyone traveling on a holiday to Berlin to go and seek it out. But obviously, a book like this, Graham, is in a more detailed way of looking at it, and it's interesting, to present an argument that may be challenging the perception that's normally there.
It's very good at oral history. It has proper historical research and a
Mm,
hell lot of facts, but there's a lot of oral history. So you
mm,
feel like you know East Germans under
yeah,
communism.
yeah,
It's also got an interesting bit about Angela Merkel, the former or future German chancellor
yeah,
of a reunified Germany as a whole. And when she was born and raised in East Germany under
yeah,
communism,
exactly. Yeah.
and she was a clever, clever young woman. And so
Mm,
she got in the Academy of Sciences, and her career was looking good because the East German government really believed in education and had a high proportion of the working classes went to university
yeah.
and became officers in the army as well. And women had a high percentage of women at
Mm,
university. So Angela was tailor made to rise through the ranks.
mm,
But because she would not spy for the Stasi, because the Stasi were so important, and she let the Stasi know she wasn't going to spy for them. This is when she
mm,
was a teenager.
mm.
She couldn't go any further than she got because to
Oh,
get any further in her career, she would have had to agree to spy for the Stasi because the Stasi spent their whole time making turning everybody into spies.
yeah.
And she also once sneaked into Poland to try and see what Western life was like,
Yeah.
or not Western life, but life in a different country, which is
Yes.
also
Yeah.
not allowed. So she
Yeah.
was quite a sort of rebellious, independent thinking young woman. And
Mm.
that's never come across in any British coverage of Angela Merkel.
No, no,
You never hear
absolutely.
that.
No, no,
They always
definitely
try
not.
to like denigrate her in some way, which is
Mm,
typical British media.
mm. So, Graham, you and I both have been to see what's actually commercially been a roaring success of a film, um, the unimaginatively titled F1 movie, or I should actually say F1 copyright movie. This is starring Brad Pitt, and you point the question: is this in pole position or at the back of the grid for Formula One or motor racing
Hilarious.
movies? Well, Graham, I mean, I read it in a very deadpan way, but I still quite like the question that's being posited there. It's been a commercial success, this film.
Mm,
But in our little discussions in advance yesterday, we were mulling over just how many good motor racing films can one think of. Um,
mm,
Steve
not
McQueen,
many.
Steve McQueen's film, maybe.
No, not really.
No,
No.
that's a no. Okay, that's fair. I think that's probably fair.
Too much car action. You have
Too much car
with a
action.
motor racing film. If you have too much car action, that means only people who love motor cars
Petrol heads,
will actually like it.
and they might as well watch an actual Grand Prix in that case.
Exactly.
Okay, well
I think
let's
the only ones
let's.
I can think of Rush 2013,
Yes,
which is about
yes.
James Hunt versus Niki Lauda in the 70s. And that was a very personable film with good characters, good dialogue,
Because there were
and you really got
two
into
because there
like,
were two really good characters, both Lauder
mm,
and Hunt, really good characters in there.
and well played by Daniel Bruhl and Chris Hemsworth. So
Yes.
Rush was genuinely entertaining and
Yeah.
engrossing without
Mhm.
being heavy. It wasn't that heavy. And Grand Prix from 1967 by John Frankenheimer, starring
Mhm.
James Garner and Eve Marie Saint
Yeah.
and Yves Montand. That's pretty brutal about how dangerous and
Yeah.
horrible and self-obsessed the whole sport of Formula One was in the 60s.
Mm.
So, but it's not an enjoyable watch, even though it's pretty hard, pretty dramatically tough film. It's hard to see you actually enjoy it. The only thing I really liked recently was Senna, that documentary about Ayrton Senna,
Yeah.
directed by the British director Asif Kapadia,
Who went on
which I
to
saw on the
do?
big screen at Edinburgh with you during the film
Did
festival
he
in
go on to do the?
2011.
Did he go on to do the Amy Winehouse one? Was that the same
He
director?
did indeed, yeah, another
Yes.
great documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I think he did. Now let's park
I
that one.
I think it was him. I think.
Mm. Anyway, Senna on the big screen was amazing because he
Yeah.
concentrated on the people. And when
Mm.
you see the people on the big screen, you could see the fear in Senna's eyes. When I saw it again on television, you couldn't see the fear because the screen was too small. But it was amazing in the big screen. But apart from that, I can't think of any
No,
particularly good.
I think Senna's the greatest of the films on motor
Mm,
racing because
mm.
it is a documentary, because it's also a tragedy, a beautiful man and wonderful driver, and you could see that he was driving an incompetent car in that season, and because he's such, he's so competitive by nature, the risks that he was taking really strongly came across in that film. So by comparison, F1 is kind of softer, really. I mean, it plays to certain cliches. Um,
It's very good at capturing the reality of being at a Formula One race now, partly because it was
yeah,
shot at real races. It had the
it
full
was.
approval of Formula One.
It
It
was
had the complete backing of Lewis Hamilton.
as
So
as
it's
an
full of
executive
cameos by
producer.
real racing drivers.
Mm,
So it is the real thing. You can tell it's the real thing, and
mm.
it looks like the real thing, which is a good starting point to a film.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed watching it, but I did. I mean, obviously, there are flaws in it, not least that Brad Pitt is playing a veteran who has done other forms of racing to keep money coming in, and suddenly gets this opportunity in Clint Eastwood style, as it were, as the older man coming in, and showing younguns how to do it, and so inevitably there's a clash with his teammate at this new team, with his team boss. Who plays his team boss? It's a familiar face.
Javier Bardem,
Yeah, absolutely. Looking rather. I
who's
mean,
very good. In
yeah,
fact, any moment that Brad Pitt is off it opposite Javier Bardem is a good
yes.
moment. And if they'd been in the whole film together the whole time, it would have been a very good film.
I'm going to suggest,
But
Graham, that the story that wasn't
mm,
really necessary was the sense of competition with a teammate. That was the cliche in the film.
the problem with Damson Idris, who's the younger brother of Elba,
Mm,
is that his acting's not terrible and he's a good looking lad, but he gets no good dialogue and he's a
no,
bit of a wooden character. He's been written in a quite wooden way. So
exactly.
you've got like believable, charming, lovable Brad Pitt and fantastic Javier Bardem. And then
Mm.
you got, you know, Damson, who's got no good lines. And every moment that he dominates the scene, the film gets less good. And since he's a principal character, he's in quite a lot of scenes.
I mean, I think that's where there's a flaw in the film. His story, it's very cliched, and also the more the film goes on, the more that Lewis Hamilton suddenly starts coming into the story towards the end. But Brad is hugely watchable as ever, and as you say,
Yeah,
the
especially the
scenes with
first half of the
Bardem,
film
yeah,
when
yeah,
he's been the maverick and breaking the rules
yeah,
with a great sense of humor on the track.
mm,
It's much more interesting than Formula One usually is
yeah.
to watch the real thing. But then, of course, the film gets more serious towards the end because it has to come to a new one, and then the Brad Pitt fun bits decreases as well. So by the end, it's starting to run out of speed, it's starting to slow down.
And having the cliche, the inevitable cliche finale. So but it was fun while we were there. It's one of those types of films, I think, fun in the moment, um, but it does play to cliches a lot. But he's a proper,
Yeah, well,
you are reminded
yeah.
he's still a very proper star. He's
Oh,
utterly watchable.
Brad Brad Pitt could star in a film about the development of Kellogg's in the
Yeah.
cereal factory and make it watchable.
He could. He could bring snap, crackle, and pop to anything. Yeah,
But it's directed by Joseph Kosinski, who directed Top Gun Maverick, which saved the film industry in 2022,
he
and
did.
which is a brilliant film, Top Gun
Mm.
Maverick.
Mm.
And I think the problem with Formula One is too many cooks spoil the broth. I think if Joseph Kosinski had been let loose on Formula One, he might have made it as good as Top Gun Maverick. But I think there's too many powerful forces being involved with the production of Formula One for him to have been able to do that.
Even
But
the
he
fact
gives
that
it a
it's
good go
called,
for
even
at
the
least
fact
half
that
the film.
it's called Formula One and it's got the copyright sign, and it's Formula One
Mm,
movie,
mm, mm.
suggests a certain level of control that was not with him, but was with the world of
Yeah.
Formula One.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if it's called Formula One, it's going to be formulaic.
I don't even need to follow up that line.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub production.